In this video, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about these conditionals with real examples and no confusion. If you watch this video until the end, you'll learn what a conditional is, the structure of all conditionals, when to use each type, and how to avoid common mistakes. Let's get it started. Alright, the first question is, what are conditionals? A conditional sentence talks about a situation and its possible result. As you can see, all conditionals have two parts: if clause, which is the condition, and main clause, which is the result. If clause explains when or what must happen, and main clause explains what happens if the condition is met. The basic format for all conditionals is like this: if plus your condition, comma, then you use your result. You can also use your result at the beginning, then if, then your condition. Remember, if you use it this way, you don't need comma. For example, if it rains, we will stay home. The if clause is if it rains, and the main clause is we will stay home. You can also say we will stay home if it rains. Alright, let's talk about real conditionals, which is zero and first. Starting with zero conditional. We use zero conditional to talk about universal truth, scientific facts, and things that always happen if the condition is met. The structure is if plus present simple, and we use present simple in the result clause as well. In zero conditional, you can also use when instead of if. Alright, let's take a look at an example. If you mix red and blue, you get purple. As you can see, I'm using simple present in both if clause and result clause because this is always true. If you mix these colors, you get purple. This is always true. In our example, if you don't water plants, they die. Again, this is always true. Or if babies are hungry, they cry. Alright, let's talk about common mistakes in zero conditionals. People sometimes use will in the if clause. For example, they say if you will mix red and blue, you get purple. You can never use will in the if clause. Alright, let's talk about first conditional. The structure is if plus present simple, and then we use will plus base form of the verb. Now we use this for possible future event that depend on the condition. These are real situations that can actually happen. For example, if I finish my work early, I'll go out with my friends. So there's a possibility of me going out with my friends if I finish my work early. So that depends on my job. And our example is like, if it rains tomorrow, we'll cancel the picnic. So as you can see here, I'm describing the possibility of raining tomorrow. I'm not sure, it might not rain, but I'm just saying if it rains, we will not go to that picnic. And our example, if you eat too much, you'll get sick. So this can actually happen. You can actually get sick if you eat a lot. Alright, let's talk about the common mistakes with first conditional. Again, sometimes people use will in the if clause rather than using it in the result clause. For example, they say, if I will see her, I'll talk to her, which is wrong. You have to say, if I see her, I'll talk to her. Alright, let's talk about second conditional, or we call it unreal present or future. The structure is if plus past simple, and then in the result clause we use would plus base form. We use second conditional to talk about hypothetical situations, situations that are imaginary, not real, in present or in the future. And we know that they're unlikely or impossible to happen. For example, if I had a car, I would drive to work. Now in this example, I'm just imagining that if I had a car, I don't have a car, but I'm just imagining if I had a car, what would be the result of that? I would drive to work. But I don't have a car, so I'm not gonna drive to work. Another example is like, if she were rich, she would travel the world. Again, in this example, she is not rich, but we're imagining if she were rich, what would she do? She would travel the world. Notice that in these examples, I'm using past simple. Now, just because I'm using past simple, it doesn't mean I'm talking about past. It means in this conditional that I'm talking about something imaginary, not real. It's not past. It's just imaginary. Another example, if I were you, I would talk to him. Notice that I'm saying if I were you. I'm not saying if I was. Why? In second conditional, we always use were instead of was for all subjects. This usually happens in formal English. Now back to the example, if I were you, I would talk to him. Here, I'm saying that if I were you, but I'm not you, I'm just imagining if I were you, what would I do? I would go and talk to him. But I'm not you, and I'm not going to talk to him. Just imagining if I were you, I would talk to him. The common mistake in second conditional is to use would in the if clause. For example, saying if I would have more time, I would learn French, which is wrong. You have to say if I had more time, I would learn French. All right, now let's talk about third conditional, or we call it unreal past. The structure is if plus past perfect. Remember, past perfect is had plus a past participle. And then in the result clause, we use would have plus a past participle. Now, we use third conditional whenever we want to imagine a different past, usually to express regret, blame, or missed opportunities. Let me explain that with a very good example. If I had studied, I would have passed the exam. Notice that everything in this sentence is about past. In the if clause, if I had studied, I'm talking about a situation that I didn't study, but I'm just imagining if I had studied, what would have happened in the past? What would have happened differently in the past? I would have passed the test. Now we know that I didn't study for the exam, and that's why I didn't pass the test. But I'm imagining if the situation was different. If I had studied, I would have passed the test. Another example, if they had left earlier, they wouldn't have missed the flight. So in this example, what really happens is that they didn't leave earlier, and as a result of that, they missed the flight. But we're imagining a different situation, a different past. We're thinking if they had left earlier, they wouldn't have missed the flight. Now the common mistake with the third conditional is the same as the second, using would have in the if clause. For example, if I would have studied, I would have passed the test, which is wrong. You have to say if I had studied, I would have passed the test. All right, now let's talk about the mixed conditionals. Mixed conditionals can be a little bit confusing, but I will try to explain it as simple as possible. We use mixed conditionals when the time in the if clause is different from the result clause. For example, we are using a present condition with a past result, or a past condition with a present result. There are generally two types of mixed conditionals. The first type is a past condition with a present result. So, how do I make this? So in mixed conditionals, we use a part of second conditional and we use part of third conditional. You either use the if clause from the second and then you use the result clause from the third, or you do vice versa. You use the if clause from the third conditional with the result in the second conditional. So if I want to talk about a past condition, I need to use the if clause from the third conditional. And if I want to talk about the present result, I need to use the result clause from the second conditional. So the type 1 structure becomes like this. If plus past perfect, and then in the result we use would plus base form. So in this type, we're talking about a past condition or situation that has an effect on the present. Let's take a look at an example to understand better. For example, if I had gone to bed earlier, I wouldn't be tired now. So in this example, I'm imagining a different condition in the past that didn't happen. I didn't go to sleep earlier, but I'm just imagining if I had gone to bed earlier, what would be the result now? I wouldn't be tired now. But I am. I'm tired now. So you see in this example, I'm talking about a past situation that has an effect on present. Another example, if she had taken the job, she would be living in New York now. Again, in this example, she didn't take the job, but I'm just imagining a past or a different past situation or condition and the effect of that condition in present. She would be living in New York now. But we know that she didn't take the job, and that's why she's not living in New York now. A past condition and a present result. Now let's talk about the second type of mixed conditionals. So in this one, we're talking about a present unreal situation that would have changed a past result. Now this type is not as common as the first type, but let's learn it anyway. So the structure is simple. I have to use unreal present condition, which is the if clause of second conditional. And I have to talk about a past result, which I can find it in third conditional, the result clause of third conditional. So the structure is if plus past simple, and in the result we use would have plus a past participle. Let's take a look at an example. If I were more responsible, I wouldn't have lost my job. So here the situation is that I am not a responsible person, or I'm not responsible. But if I were responsible, in the past, I wouldn't have lost my job. But I did lose it because I'm not a responsible person. Or if I spoke French, I would have understood the movie. Now we both know that I don't speak French, and because of that, in the past, I did not understand that movie that we watched. Perfect, now you know everything about conditionals. Now tell me, what would you do if you had $1 million? Comment below. Let's see which conditionals you use to answer my question. If this video was useful, don't forget to like, subscribe so you never miss another video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.